Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey, guys. Okay, we are doing World War II. Oh, no, we're doing Wirtschaftswunder, the post-World War II rise of Germany, mega projects. Yeah, no one recommended this. I saw it and I felt like watching it, and why not record it? My name's Connor. If you are new, I like to watch things and do stuff on YouTube. Original link to the video, top of the description, right under that. Link to the Discord. Click on it. Send you right over there. Let's do it. If you're not ready to learn, you know the drill. There's the door. Hope you're all doing well. Let's go.
This video is brought to you by Surfshark. Safety and security online are critically important, and you can protect yourself online with Surfshark. Get 83% off and 4 months for free through the link in the description below. If you've ever flown over the Rhinelands and seen its vast expanse of factories, highways, and railroads, it's hard to imagine that at the end of World War II, the US had proposed forcing Germany to become an agrarian, non-industrial country. Clearly, something didn't go as planned. Now Germany, with a nominal GDP of over 3.8 trillion US dollars, is the largest economy in Europe and the fourth largest in the world. With 83 million people, the nation has just 1% of the world's population, but represents over 5% of global manufacturing output. It exports 180 billion euros, over 200 million US dollars, more than it imports. Its primary goods, including motor vehicles and parts, machinery, and chemical products.
It's interesting how
did
Japan
Germany rebuild itself from the rubble of World War II into one of the industrial powerhouses of the world? And who should get the credit?
In my opinion, honestly, Japan is even more impressive because of where they were just 150 years ago. So
Germany was already an advanced industrial economy prior to World War II, with a GDP of 384 billion US dollars in 1939, adjusted at 1990 prices. It had a larger economy than all the other major powers of the time except the United States. However, the war devastated the nation and destroyed much of its industrial infrastructure, not to mention its labor force. Specifically, some estimates calculate that 7.4 million Germans died, over 10% of the population, many of whom were young men who would otherwise have filled jobs in heavy industry. Food production was reduced by 50%, housing stock by 20%, and industrial output by 33%. The destruction, it didn't stop with Germany's surrender, though. At the Potsdam Conference in the summer of 1945, the Allies made extensive plans to administrate the 4 occupation zones in Germany, those of the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and the Soviet Union, and institute the conference's 5 Ds: demilitarization, denazification, democratization, decentralization, and deindustrialization. Much of this included taking resources and industry and military infrastructure as reparations. For example, the Soviet Union was granted control over the Deichmark shipyards in Bremen, which they used to send equipment from manufacturing facilities all over the country back to the USSR. This included a 15-car trainload of machinery from the Gendorf power plant in Bavaria, which...
Guys, and I understand, the winner's the winner, all right? The loser's the loser of a war, and, but man, the sort of effect that it must have on the psychology of a German citizen, both honestly, both after Treaty of Versailles, after World War I, and after post World War II, just being completely helpless. And again, you lost the war. I understand if it happened the other way around, similar things would happen to other countries. So. But just the psychological effect that must have had on your average everyday German, just like, oh, Russians in here, Americans in here, taking this, taking that,
which had previously provided electricity for 35,000 people. It wasn't just physical equipment, though. The Allies also took much of Germany's intellectual capital, like patents and technology. With Operation Paperclip, the United States even went so far as to recruit 1,600 important German scientists and engineers to move to the US and work for the American government or military. Researcher right John Gibbs to move to the...
I think that's him right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in. I think that's him right there. I could be wrong, though. He could not even be in this picture.
The US and work for the American government or military. Researcher John Gimbel estimates that These intellectual reparations transferred nearly $10 billion from Germany to the US and the UK, or over $100 billion in today's currency. The United States based much of its strategy on the Morgenthau Plan, which had been proposed by the US Secretary of the Treasury Henry Morgenthau Jr. in 1944. His idea was to divide Germany into separate North and South German states, as well as create an international zone in the Ruhr, the center of German coal and steel production.
I feel so bad for
Plus,
Otto von
the plan
Bismarck.
suggested that all industrial plants and equipment not destroyed by military action shall either be completely dismantled and removed from the area or destroyed. It was ultimately estimated that this would wreck the German economy and kill upwards of 25 million people, so, well, it was never officially adopted. Still, through 1947, the US occupation was operating on a philosophy of restricting German industry. In fact, President Harry S. Truman ordered the US occupation to take no steps looking toward the economic rehabilitation of Germany or designed to maintain or strengthen the German economy. This was known as Directive JCS 1067. Keeping with this philosophy, in 1946, the Allies agreed to limit German industrial output to 50% of its 1938 level, which would be accomplished by destroying 1,500 factories. Additionally, there were limits on steel production set at 5.8 million tons, or about 25% of the pre-war output, and cars set at 10% of pre-war levels. Altogether, the Allies wanted to return Germany to the same standard of living that it had in 1932. However, by 1947, the US was beginning to reconsider their strategy for post-war Germany, something they gradually convinced the UK and France to go along with.
This is what's so crazy about the Soviet Union, just how the threat of the Soviet Union just immediately turned attention to them away from Germany.
Not only did they believe that economically revitalized Germany would help the recovery in Europe overall, but they saw West Germany would be an important ally in the Cold War against the Soviet Union. This led to a new plan.
Rework it.
The Marshall Plan, nicknamed for U.S. Secretary of State George Marshall, was an act of U.S. Congress passed into law in 1948 officially as the European Recovery Program. Through this program, the United States gave over $13 billion in foreign aid to Western Europe, which equates to over $160 billion in today's money. Initially, the Marshall Plan didn't include Germany, and
like
the
Elon
primary
Musk.
recipients were the UK and France.
Elon Musk, isn't he like $200 billion? Jesus. So he could foot the bill and still be $20 billion.
Actually, the Marshall Plan didn't include Germany, and the primary recipients were the UK and France. However, in 1949, the US decided to go ahead and give around $1.4 billion in loans to West Germany, over $16 billion today. In addition to the Marshall Plan, previous restrictions based on the philosophy of the Morgenthau Plan were lifted. President Truman rescinded the punitive measures of Directive JCS 1067 and replaced it with JCS 1779, which stated that an orderly, prosperous Europe requires the economic contributors of a stable and productive Germany. The cap on steel production was raised from 25% of pre-war levels to 50%, or 12 million tons per year. This was later removed altogether under the Treaty of Paris in 1952, which gave control of the Ruhr steel and coal production back to West Germany on the condition that the new nation join the European coal and steel community. However, while West German GDP grew by over 33% during the first 3 years of the Marshall Plan, many modern historians only give it partial credit for rebuilding Germany's economy. Indeed, it's estimated that this aid contributed less than 5% to Germany's national income during this period. Rather, the Wirtschaftswunder is considered to be more the result of the economic and fiscal policies and principles introduced in West Germany after the war. For the most part, these came from the German authorities themselves. So we'll get back to today's video in just a moment, but first, a quick word from today's fantastic sponsor, Surfshark. Do you use the internet?
Sure,
of course you do. You're using
If you get it, use the link down here, /mega. Lets them know where they came from, gives them more money.
Right now, got some information you'll rather remain personal. Well, who doesn't? The internet's a weird place. There are people out there trying to nick your personal information or track your Instagram to bombard you with creepily accurate ads. No one wants any of that nonsense. Also, Surfshark have hack lock protection. They search online for your passwords,
Sometimes
which sounds
I think
bad,
that
but
it
no, they
listens
let
to my
you know
conversations.
if something's gone
I
wrong,
swear
so you
I
can
won't type
change
something in.
that password.
I'll just talk
and
about
let's
something.
talk about streaming options. Maybe you're like, let's watch some Netflix. I want to watch Tom Cruise remain underwater for a really long time, which he actually did. like in real life in that Mission Impossible movie, which
Tom
I don't
Cruise is
remember.
nuts.
But the thing about Mission
Say what
Impossible,
you want about him in Scientology, nuts. I think he's a brilliant actor and a great stunts guy.
maybe it's not available in the Netflix where you live, which is terrible, but Surfshark, they'll fix that right up. Hop on over to another country's server and boom, easy. Surfshark's also
Just like Mel
totally
Gibson.
unlimited,
Say what you
so
want
you
about
can
Mel Gibson,
download
but damn,
whatever
that
you
guy
want,
can act
and they're
and
never going to be
direct.
like, whoa, too much. Right now, you can get 83% off and 4 months for free at surfshark.deals
And yes, I did put in
or just follow the link in the description
and,
box below. And now let's get back to today's video.
Braveheart is as kind of a joke. Wirtschaftswunder.
One of the intellectuals that US forces sought out after the war was Ludwig Erhard.
I had to pee quick, guys. Sorry. All right, back. I'll wash my hands.
Erhard, an economist from Bavaria who had daringly published an essay in 1944 called War Finances and Debt Consolidation, in which he assumed Germany would lose the war. Erhard was a protege of economist Franz Oppenheimer and a follower of the Freiburg School of Economic Thought and its corresponding ideology of ordoliberalism, also known as the social free market. Ordoliberalism was heavily in favor of free market capitalism, but it did allow for considerable government involvement and regulation, including a strong but government-independent central bank and a social safety net. Naturally, this was quite different to the state-planned communism employed in East Germany, but it was also in stark contrast to how the Allies had been managing West Germany up until 1948. For instance, industrial limits, price controls, and trade regulation, some implemented by the Nazis but left in place by the Allies and others implemented by the Allies themselves, had led to mass shortages and a rampant black market, with most Germans living on just around 1,500 calories a day. The US occupation initially appointed Erhard as finance minister of Bavaria, but he was later promoted to director of the Economic Council for the western part of occupied Germany. One of the first things he did in the role was promote and help conceive the development of a new currency for West Germany. The currency at the time was the Reichsmark, and it had become next to worthless. In the last year of the war, the Nazis nearly doubled the amount of banknotes in circulation, and the Soviets had inflated away most of the rest of its value as another means of extracting reparations. The Reichsmark had become so unstable that many Germans even turned to using cigarettes, coffee, and tea as currency. Erhard and his German and Allied colleagues devised the Deutschmark to replace the Reichsmark. In one fell swoop, this would decrease the currency available to the public by 93%, which would painfully, but necessarily, rip off the band-aid of the old currency. However, Erhard also did something that American and British authorities initially opposed, which was to remove all price controls, and he did this on the very same day that the new Deutschmark was released, the 21st of June, 1948. Furthermore, he instituted large tax cuts with the aim of allowing more money to flow into investments and general spending. For example, a West German making the median income at the time of around 2,400 Deutschmarks saw their marginal tax rate fall from 85% to just 18%. And the results were almost immediate. Part of the reason Germany's economic reconstruction after World War II is called a Wirtschaftswunder or economic miracle is how quickly it happened. In June 1948, when the new Deutschmark was introduced, West Germany's industrial output was half of what it had been in 1936, but by 1949, it was up to 80%. With the elimination of price controls and a new currency that held its value, the black market disappeared almost overnight. Economic efficiency and industriousness returned as people no longer had to scavenge and barter for food and other goods. The economic momentum only continued to mount. Living standards improved, certainly beyond the Depression-era levels that the Allies had previously planned for. During the 1950s, West German output increased 8% per year on average, faster than the rest of Europe. By 1958, industrial production was 4 times what it had been just before Erhard's reforms. In 1955, the combined GDP of East and West Germany overtook that of the UK. Of course, Germany had a larger population, but by the 1970s, its per capita GDP had also surpassed the UK too. Unemployment was notably low as well, reflecting the efficiency and accessibility of Germany's social market economy. During the early 1960s, it averaged just 1%, reaching a low of 0.7% in 1970. This led to the Gastarbeiter program, which brought migrant migrant workers from other countries like Turkey to fill empty positions in the booming economy. Ever since World War II, Germany's economy has had a few hiccups aside from global economic downturns such as the oil crisis in the early 70s and the Great Recession between 2007 and 2009. Its biggest challenge came after reunification in 1991, when increased debt and government spending aimed at uniting the country and boosting East Germany's lower productivity came into conflict with the German central bank's policy of extremely low inflation.
Guys, so question. So the Berlin Wall was essentially a way to keep... Like, there was never... I'm asking a question. There was never people trying to flee to the eastern side. Like, it was all eastern people trying to go to the western side. And that kind of shows you how much more successful the American, German, British kind of restructuring of the German economy after World War II was just so much better than the Russian one, that it was just to keep people from fleeing to the other side because of how terrible it got over there.
Nevertheless, Germany remained an economic
that was in
powerhouse
question
and
for
was the
me.
largest economy in Europe when the euro was introduced in 1999, a title it still maintains, accounting for 28% of the eurozone economy. It exported around 1.2 trillion euros, or 1.4 trillion US dollars worth of goods and services in 2020, the largest in the EU and the third largest in the world. Exports accounted for over 43% of the country's GDP, compared to 18.5% for China and 10% for the United States, the only two larger exporters. This is all on the back of an impressive economic infrastructure. Now, just 77 years after being reduced to rubble in World War II, Germany has 27 Fortune 500 companies, 4 of the most valuable in the world, including number 10, Volkswagen, with $283 billion in revenue. It has the 6th longest railway network in the world at 41,000 kilometers or 25,000 miles, roughly the circumference of the Earth. The famous Autobahn motorway network measures over 12,000 kilometers or 7,200 miles, making it the third largest national highway system in the world after the US and China. To this day, Germany is the EU's largest manufacturer, with 29% of its production, and its economy is considered to be more resilient to a downturn than most other European nations. Now, like the rest of the world, its economy is facing the hurdle of the COVID-19 pandemic, but so far it has fared relatively well, having seen less decline in GDP in the second quarter of 2020 compared to other major European economies like France, Italy, and Spain. The only question that remains is, will the Wirtschaftswunder press on?
It's doing pretty well, it
So
seems.
I really hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe.
Sorry if I was a bit more tired
Thank
than
you for
usual.
watching.
Waking up. Still really interesting video, and it's amazing how Germany was able to pick itself up. And, well, with some help, but after 2 devastating wars, kind of come back each time. The first time leading to the Second World War, the second time leading to 4th largest economy in the world. Great video. I'm a bit more awake now. Yeah. Check out one of your recommendations. See you guys next time.